You ever wonder why big organizations, we're talking governments, huge companies, even schools, sometimes make decisions that just seem obviously bad? Well, there's a really powerful idea that explains this, and believe it or not, it all starts with a single streetlight.
Okay, picture this. You're outside at night and you drop your keys. We've all been there, right? You feel that pit in your stomach, that classic frustrating moment.
So where do you look? Almost without thinking, you start searching under the bright circle of light from the nearest streetlight. Now, is that because that's where you probably dropped them? Nope. It's because that's where the light is. It feels like the logical thing to do, but what you're really doing is just searching where it's easy. This exact scenario, this little story, actually has a name. It's a classic anecdote used to describe a cognitive bias known as the streetlight effect, or as it's sometimes called, the drunkard's search. So, what this all boils down to is this. We have this built-in tendency to look for answers not where they're most likely to be, but where they are easiest to find. It's a simple thinking error, a mental shortcut. But what happens when this isn't just one person looking for their keys? What happens when entire organizations, governments, massive corporations, universities start searching only under the streetlight? Well, that's when a simple, personal error blows up into a massive systemic problem. See, for you or me, it's a minor mistake. You waste a few minutes looking in the wrong place. But when an entire institution does it, that bias suddenly gets supercharged with the power of budgets, entire departments, and official mandates. It's not just a thinking error anymore. It's a system-shaping force that can impact millions of lives. At its core, the problem is this. Organizations that have to show they're getting results will almost always gravitate toward what's easy to count and measure instead of what truly counts and actually matters. And look, this isn't always about being dishonest. A lot of the time, it's just convenient. So for example, let's say a development agency wants to improve a community's health. That's a really complex goal. But you know what's easy to count? The number of wells they've drilled. So that becomes the metric for success, even if half those wells break down or the water isn't even clean. Or, hey, think about education. What really matters is whether students are actually learning, if they can think critically. But that's super hard to measure. Graduation rates, though, those are simple, clean numbers. So we end up celebrating rising graduation rates, even if the kids walking across the stage can't read at their grade level. And in the tech world, oh, it's everywhere. The real goal should be creating genuine value for users. But what gets plastered on every dashboard? Daily active users. It's a simple number that tells you absolutely nothing about whether people's lives are actually getting any better because of your product. In every single one of these cases, a measurable proxy gets swapped in for a meaningful outcome. Now, here's what's really fascinating and frankly kind of dangerous about this institutional version of the problem. It actually feeds on itself. A bad metric doesn't just stick around, it digs in and becomes deeply entrenched in the system. And this creates a vicious cycle. It all starts when an easy metric gets chosen. Then, whole departments are created just to improve that one specific number. Pretty soon, people are getting promoted, getting bonuses, and building their entire careers on hitting that target. And then, all of a sudden, questioning that metric, that's not just a helpful suggestion anymore. It's a direct threat to people's jobs and their status. It becomes politically toxic to even bring it up. There's a brilliant line that captures this perfectly. The institutional streetlight doesn't just attract attention, it rearranges the furniture. The organization literally starts to change its structure, its priorities, its very shape, to get better at serving the metric, not the original mission. All right, so let's look at some concrete case files to see the real, tangible damage this can cause when organizations are operating completely under the light of a flawed metric. So in academia, research that spits out clean, neat, statistically significant numbers gets published way more easily. This means that researchers who focus on things that are easy to quantify get promoted faster. And the result? Entire fields of study can literally drift away from the messy, complicated, but truly important questions that just don't fit into a tidy spreadsheet. Or take medicine. The streetlight is often shining right on biomarkers, things like blood pressure or tumor size. A new drug might shrink a tumor by 10%, which looks fantastic in a report. But what if the patient taking it doesn't feel any better? What if they don't live any longer? The number improved, but the person didn't. The focus was on the metric, not the patient's actual well-being. And this really uncovers a crucial truth. Having super detailed charts and precise numbers about the wrong thing, that's not being data-driven. It's not rigor. It's really just a more sophisticated, well-dressed form of ignorance. But perhaps the most chilling, most devastating example of this comes from the Vietnam War. When the US military needed a metric to measure progress, they found one that was simple, quantifiable, and seemed totally definitive. The straight light was on, the body count. Progress was reported up the chain of command as a single, stark number, the enemy body count. Commanders felt this immense pressure to produce high numbers. The number itself became the goal. It was precise, it was measurable, and it was tragically, horribly misleading. Because out there, in the dark, away from that one single blinding metric, were the things that actually decided the outcome of the war. Political legitimacy, popular support among the Vietnamese people, logistical realities. These things were incredibly hard to measure, so they were basically ignored. The keys to the war were in the dark, and the military just kept searching under the wrong light. So, after seeing how this works on such a grand and sometimes tragic scale, the real power of this idea is learning how to apply it to our own lives, our own organizations. It's about learning to spot the streetlights. So, I want you to really think about this. In your job, on your team, at your school, what is the thing everyone is obsessed with measuring? What's on that quarterly report or that big dashboard? And then ask yourself, what truly matters here? What is the real goal we're trying to achieve? And are those two things actually the same? It forces us to ask the most important, and yeah, sometimes the most uncomfortable question of all. We spend so much time and energy optimizing for what we can measure, assuming the solution is somewhere in the data we already have. But what if the answer, the real keys to success, to health, to genuine progress, what if they aren't under the light at all? What if we need to find the courage to search in the dark?